My name is Hannah Gage, and I'm going to be going over the data-driven instruction cycle. The first thing that you're going to start with is obviously you have to collect that data. And I think that a lot of people, it gets hard to collect data on a frequent basis because at the classroom you've got a million things to do. I know for me personally that's something that I can tend to struggle with, is remembering to collect data outside of those beginning, middle, end of year assessment, benchmarks, STAR tests, all that stuff. So a lot of my data is informal. So one of the goals I've set is making sure that I have a little bit more formal, maybe like end of unit tests and stuff like that, so that I can really collect that data. While that informal data is very important, it is also important that we have that data that is on paper, or maybe nowadays on an iPad, whatever your district or you as a teacher do. So that is something that it can be a little tricky, but collecting data is such a valuable part to not only the teacher and ensuring that the teacher is growing, but ensuring that your students are growing and learning. And that is the number one thing in a classroom, is that your students are able to learn and grow, and you can help them and meet those students' needs, because not every student is the same, where they're all different. It's not one size fits all. So after you collect your data, it's very important that you don't just let it go to waste. So you want to sit down, you want to analyze it, you want to go through it, you want to make sure that you're looking for patterns or trends or anything that might stand out to you. Are there a lot of misconceptions in one area? Or is this one particular student not understanding this area? Or is it whole class? Because that's going to kind of play a part in the next steps. So obviously, if it's a whole class or a majority of your class is not understanding, then you want to go back to the drawing board and you want to plan for a wider scope. You're not just going to plan for a small group when it's majority of your class not understanding. You as a teacher want to go back and say, okay, what have I done wrong? One example I can think of in my own life is that one day I was teaching a math lesson last year, and at the end of the lesson my students turned in their exit tickets, and it was like we as a class did not understand what we were doing. So that was enough information to me as a teacher. Once I went through it, I looked for all the trends and patterns. That was enough information for me to say, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board, not just for this small group of students, but majority of our class not understanding. So that kind of tells you when you need to reteach, what you need to reteach, and maybe how you need to reteach it if it's a specific group of students. That goes into your next step. You want to plan. You want to come up with a game plan. You want to say, okay, what do I need? What do I need to do? Where am I looking at? Am I pulling a small group for these students? Am I making it more hands-on? Am I going back to maybe a lower level? Maybe it's a lower level understanding that they have gaps from the grade before, or maybe it's just something that's harder for them. It's going to take them a little bit longer, and you have to really know your students' needs and interests, and that comes into just getting to know those students. And so you really want to sit down, you want to plan. Okay, this student I know is a hands-on student. I can think of one time in my classroom I had a student that was really struggling with the phonics rule that we were learning. The spelling of it, just all of it. So one of the things we did, I knew that student was a hands-on learner and that they needed to be engaged. So we brought in shaving cream. We sat down, we kind of went over the phonics rule. They wrote the phonics rule in shaving cream, and that really helped for that particular student stick. Whereas another student, maybe they just needed to sit down one-on-one and just get a little bit more instruction. They didn't necessarily need that hands-on. That wasn't their learning style. So after you plan, then you, of course, want to implement. You want to go in, you want to pull that small group that you have planned. You want to reteach that lesson to your whole class if need be. And you want to really make sure that you are drilling and killing that information so that those students have the best opportunity to succeed in your classroom. Because if it's not taught to them in the way that they need it, then how can we expect our students to succeed? And then from there, you want to revisit, make sure everything you're making growth, that your students are understanding, and then you want to repeat as needed for different subjects, for different topics. Maybe you're covering a totally new concept in your classroom. So you just want to make sure that you're repeating it and doing it over and over, and that this cycle has a place in your classroom. And I know for me personally, with time, it can be difficult. So as a teacher, I make sure that when I'm sitting down and planning in my for my following week's lessons and units, that I am implementing this cycle when I'm planning. It's pulled out next to me. I'm talking during PLCs. We're talking about it. Okay, this is something that our students as a whole struggled with. What can we do? How can we help improve our students' needs? And you just repeat the cycle over and over. Thank you so much.